Hello, hello, here we go, it's the Kopite Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Kopite Podcast. We are back once again with another Into the Twitterverse, this time episode 2. I'm joined again by Matt. How are you, Matt?
Good, yourself?
Not too bad, mate, not too bad. And Mick, how are you, mate?
Yeah, all good. Looking forward to this episode after last week's went quite well, didn't it? It was quite interesting to have a little look around, see what people are tweeting and getting some thoughts on it. So yeah, looking forward to it, mate.
Good. All right. With that, let's dive into the first tweet, which is.
Yes.
All right, so this is a tweet from James Pearce about the Premier League title race and how he's talking about how wide open it is and how the top 6 is currently separated by just 5 points. Now, each contender, he states, has their own flaws, and basically the point he's trying to make is whoever's the first to fix their problems is likely to pull away and win the league. So, Matt, I'll come to you first. What are your thoughts on the title race and the state of the league at the moment?
I think the league's mental. It's absolutely crazy league, and I think if anyone's fixed their problems, I think City have already fixed theirs. City are in a bit of a roll. I think they're probably favourites. I definitely think it's too early to call it a title race when there's 6, maybe 7 teams in the mix. I think by February, March, when the Champions League and the Europa League come back into it, then we'll start to see the crap drift away. Fully expecting United to drop like a rock when they're week in, week out with Europa League, Thursday, Sunday. But yeah, I think James Pearce is quite accurate there. There's a handful of teams in it, and if we can sort ourselves out quickly, then we won't be dropping.
All right, well, having said that, with the Champions League and Europa League coming up, is that likely to affect the likes of Liverpool and Man City's ability to field full-strength squads and be at full fitness come the weekends and not drop points that like we have seen them do over the course of the season so far? Mick, would you like to just talk about the potential of Leicester City, for example, coming through and winning just because of the strength of their schedule? Yeah,
it's completely plausible, isn't it? I mean, we can't really say anything otherwise because it's happened before, and it's happened with them, and it's also happened with Blackburn back in the day in the 90s. So it's not impossible. I doubt it because there's Man City can go top with their game in hand, and they seem to be clicking into the right gear at the moment. And in terms of coming into Champions League and stuff, and their squad's good enough to deal with it at the moment. I don't think ours is up until the point we get. I think Jota coming back for us will be huge. I think he's back end of January, isn't he? So another couple of weeks and he'll be back in the fold. Hopefully back ready to go for the Leipzig game. So yeah, it's anyone's at the minute. But I'd like to counter that tweet with another one that I seen this morning from Ian Doyle. He put, there's never been a Premier League title race this close at this stage of the season, apart from when there was, which he posted a tweet of, obviously this season's everyone being close to the top, and then a screenshot of the 2013 season when after 18 games there was 6 points between the top 6. So I think it puts things in perspective, and I know this season is a bit mad because obviously there's COVID cases everywhere, there's no fans, there's so many, there's a myriad of factors into it. That's why you're seeing some bizarre results. Obviously Liverpool getting beat by Southampton and Villa in a normal season doesn't usually happen in that kind of way. But yeah, it's proven that it does happen, and obviously they were 18 games in, and I think so in this one in 13, 14, I think this is, or 12, 13 might be. We're on 36 points after 18 games, 11 wins. So yeah, it's good for the league in a way because it gets that competitiveness back, and obviously Man United are back up there, and that gave that game last week a bit more impetus, and that's why I thought we might be a bit more up for it. Turned out we weren't as much as we wanted to, and it was a bit of a bore draw in the end, weren't it? But yeah, it's anyone's this season. Whoever strikes first. Obviously, Man United have already done that. They're playing at their maximum at the moment. If they drop even a little bit, and we get the likes of Jota and stuff back in, and Shaq stays fit, It's just then yeah, it is anyone's though this season. Unfortunately, I'm just hoping we manage to hit form at the right time.
I'm looking at the table now. We've only won 9 of our games. Like 9 of our 18 Premier League games. They didn't realise that it was that low a percentage.
Yeah, we've also drawn the second most times in the league, just behind Brighton with 7, I think, at the moment. So we've only lost the 2 games, but at the same time, 7 draws has been our big kind of downfall, and none of those have exactly been high scoring, which kind of highlights our problem front goal at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, this is certainly more reminiscent of what the Premier League was through the noughties and into the early 2010s. Far more competition throughout the league. It wasn't just the likes of a City or a United or a Liverpool just flying through it, and you kind of like by Christmas knew who was going to win the league. And it's not been just 2 teams competing from start to finish essentially for the title. So it is nice. It is refreshing. It's not nice on the nerves week in, week out, but then again, I guess it adds that level of excitement. But
yeah, I mean, I do think we've been spoiled the last 2 seasons. Like when City won it 2 years ago, it was clear by this point that it was going to be the City or Liverpool, and then when Liverpool won it last year, it was clear by now that we were going to win it. This is the first time, probably in 3 years, that you haven't got a clue who's going to win it. So it is exciting.
Well, it's a nice change because it's a change from the norm. Like I'm a bit bored of this. It's like it's either Cities or Liverpool, and it's nice that we're in that conversation. But it is nice to see like not a return of the top 4 like it used to be. It used to be like obviously Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea, and Arsenal. Obviously City have came into the picture since then. Leicester are flying. Tottenham are doing really well. Everton are up there. West Ham are up there. Like there's so many teams up there at the moment that it's hard to call. You would like Matt said, that you would like to think once if certain teams get injuries to players, they won't be able to cope, and you'll see a natural drop off going into February and March, I think.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Having said that, this next tweet just touches on the game from this weekend. So you don't really get much from the tweet, from reading it, but if you actually look at the clip and you actually watch the Monday Night Football, they didn't really talk much Arsenal and Newcastle because, let's face it, not many people are too interested, and kind of looked more into analysing the United and Liverpool game in a little bit more depth. But what Gary Neville's point is the fact that he understood why Man United came out and played the way they did, because his argument was that then they're a team in transition and that they don't have the mentality yet to go to change their mentality game to game and say, oh, Liverpool are here for the taking, which we have been, and let's go press and attack and go to win this game. They went into this game and said, we're going to go and draw. We're just not going to lose, because that would kill our momentum essentially. So we've seen more and more teams doing this, haven't we, this season, Mick? It's been more of a we're not going to drop points season than we're going to go into this big game and try and win it, and that's shown over the bunch of the big game results, because they've all been 0-0s and 1-1s.
Yeah, and it's like we all knew exactly what Solskjaer was going to do in this game. Like I was obviously done an opposition overview with a Man United fan. It's like it's nailed on their lineup pretty much. I was surprised Pogba started really, and the way he started on the right of midfield was a bit mad. I don't know. I didn't really understand that one. He ended up moving, didn't he, towards the second half? But yeah, it's like I said, there's so many factors this season. Like it's a close season so far. We're approaching halfway. Teams don't want to. Well, it's difficult because there's no fans as well. So the no fans thing, it especially helps us a lot when we've obviously got fans in the stadium. The fact that we haven't got that, it does give teams a little bit more impetus. And that's why I am a bit surprised in terms of Man United's second half against us, because I thought they'd come out after getting through the first half and they'd think, well, we've got through the first 45 minutes, we haven't conceded, let's go and take the game to them. They haven't got any defenders, and then they just kind of played the same way. Obviously, they had the 2 best chances in the game, but they were counter-attacking chances, and yeah, I think Neville says, doesn't he, like he was kind of feeling the way into it, and I think when he made like an analogy, like a a difficult course on a golf course, and then you look back and think that was an easy course. I should have went a bit more vigorous on it to get a birdie or something. I think he said, didn't he? But that is a good analogy, and I think teams are playing it safe this season because there's so many factors into it. Like there's no fans, like I said, loads of COVID cases, like players just having too many games in a week as well. Like we've seen that from the way Liverpool playing now. Like Naby Keita's out. Like there's so many players out for us, and I think that's from they can't handle the run of games. Same with Joel Matip. So expect more of that for the rest of the season, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly an interesting thing, and something that Jamie Carragher added to that analogy was that Liverpool, who are often a par five, and you've got to take 2 or 3 safe shots before you kind of like, and you go, oh, this is we're going to be good to get a par five here instead of a birdie. He said that, before you hit the ball, the hole's moved 50 yards closer because they're playing 2 midfielders in central defence. So, Matt, would you like to touch on that and what's that? How that has affected teams coming 1 into Anfield and 2 just playing Liverpool in general?
I don't really think it's changed it too much, to be honest. After the United match, I was of the opinion that United probably should have gone for it because we were, in theory, there for the taking. But then, if they do go for it, we're still a threat on the counter. We're at our most dangerous on the counter attack, and if you're all of a sudden going to go press Liverpool, then there's a higher chance of you scoring a goal with Hendo and Fab at the back instead of Virgin and Joe. But if we get the ball and there's space for the front 3, you're going to be in trouble regardless if you got your strongest defense out or not. So I sort of understand it, and I guess I just expect it from all the other teams because I think the threat of our attack is a lot more, is in their heads a lot more than the weakness in our defense.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, having talked about that, this next tweet kind of like is an interesting take on our current situation in that backline.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. 100%. I agree with part of it.
So what I was going to say regarding this is actually having broken down this tweet and kind of actually thought about it and thought about how the season has progressed so far and where we hit points of form and all that kind of stuff. It seems like since we've been juggling around the midfield more, we've been less consistent in getting good results. When we went through the stretch of the season where every weekend we had Jones, Henderson and Wijnaldum lined up in the midfield, it seemed like we were getting results like we normally do. And I'm not blaming Thiago because he's been brilliant, but obviously since he's moved that midfield around, he pulled Jones out after a mistake and he kind of like had a bit of a dive in form. It's kind of looked a bit shaky and we've not looked as, it's in correlation with our goal scoring. It has been since we've moved that midfield around. We haven't really been scoring at the rate we normally do. And the Crystal Palace game was the last game where we kind of really saw a midfield that had been there for a while. So Matt, I'll come to you first. What do you make of the situation? You just said that you partially agree with this tweet.
Yeah, I think consistency is definitely key. And I do think that we need a centre-back in January. I'm not sure. I know that Henderson would be a lot better placed in the midfield, but if we're not going to sign a centre-back in January and Klopp is sort of going to sacrifice Henderson in the midfield and tell him to play to cover until Virg gets back, then I think instead of shoving him back in the midfield, we need to see Henderson at centre-back for as long as possible so you can get accustomed to that position. It's going to do him no favours coming into the midfield and back in the centre-back and into the midfield and back in the centre-back. And it's going to disrupt the midfield as well. So as much as I'd like to see Nat Phillips against Burnley, if Henderson's going to be centre-back going forward for the remainder of the season, I'd rather just see Henderson in the midfield than a repeat of the midfield 3 because we don't just need consistency in the back, we need consistency all around the pitch. And you've alluded to the changing in the midfield as well. It's not going to help at all. And yet Thiago's a quality player, but quality players need to build relationships with players around them. And if that's chopping and changing all the time, like having Gini behind Thiago is a completely different prospect to having Hendo behind Thiago. Both quality players, but the intricacies of their game are different. So you just need consistency all around the pitch, and then we'll hopefully start working.
Yeah, so I mean, over the course of several different podcasts, we've talked about how, Klopp over the last couple of years hasn't really changed his side too much week to week, but having been forced to show less of a consistent 11 over the course of the season, he's we've seen the results we've seen, which is 9 wins, 7 draws, and 2 losses, which for a Klopp team is essentially unheard of since Van Dijk arrived, essentially. So Mick, would you like to just touch on just how this is affecting our consistency and what you're seeing from the team on a weekly basis that's changing?
Yeah, I think it's a Klopp team is primarily based on having a consistent lineup, and I think we've seen that the last couple of years. I think there's a lot of argument that we're too reliant on people being available, which is a point, and I mean that's why we've brought in the likes of Jota to try and freshen up that front three. I mean, I watched the Carragher clip from I think it was from yesterday, wasn't it, the Monday Night Footy, where he's talking about our forward three and how Jota coming in could replace Firmino, he thinks will be the first out the door in terms of the front three. But it's not just our game is based on having a solid foundation at the back. Van Dijk, Gomez, and Mata, either or those two alongside Van Dijk, and then fullbacks bomb forward. Henderson drops in. You have the three sitting while everyone just goes and causes carnage up front, and it's having those two missing. Like even if we just kept one, obviously Van Dijk got injured, then Gomez got injured for England. We were kind of still positive because we were like, well, we've still got Gomez and Mata. That was why we were still being positive. Then Gomez goes and gets that injury. He's going to be out for longer than Van Dijk, it looks like. And you kind of like, well, it should have. I've said this before. It should have affected us more than it has. The fact that we're still performing, the fact that we've had these results that we've had against Palace and Wolves and Spurs and Leicester as well. Like them performances were exceptional. And I think we do turn it on for the bigger games, and that's why I'm surprised we didn't do it against United, because they were there for the taking. I thought if we played to our strengths, but yeah, I agree with this tweet, but I also agree with Matt in terms of Henderson can't keep chopping and changing positions. He either sticks with Hendo at the back with Fab, and they have a progressive run of games, getting used to each other, getting used to that position, because you've heard like midfielders on Sky Sports, like I think Roy Keane spoke about the same. When you drop back to centre half, it's a completely different prospect to playing in centre midfield. Even if you're a defensive midfielder, you have to be exceptionally good to take to it, as good as Fabinho has, and the fact that he has done that is exceptional. But like, I don't think Henderson is as accustomed to it as a centre half as Fabinho will be, in terms of because obviously Fabinho's played right back for Monaco and all that other stuff. He's more versatile in that regard as a defensive minded player. So yeah, it's just, I agree with the final, like consistency is vital, and I'm hoping like once Jota comes back, if we keep Shaq fit, if we keep a settled centre back partnership. Obviously Matip, I don't know if he's going to be fit for Thursday. I've no idea, but if he is, I imagine he comes back in. I would like to see Phillips, because if we go Matip, Phillips, then at least Henderson and Fab can then go back into midfield, and then we can see how those two get on as a pairing against Burnley. We're going to play long balls anyway, so having those two big fellas at the back will suit us down to the ground. All we need to do is head the stuff away. Chris Wood and Barnes are just going to be looking for flick-ons, aren't they? And if they've got 6'5" Matip and Nat Phillips, who's an absolute beast in the air, they're not going to get any change out of them. So I hope we'll see those two, and we see Hendo and Fab back in midfield alongside Thiago, get a bit of momentum going in terms of that. And then, yeah, we just have to... The thing is, we can't rely on people, so it's difficult because you want to see these lineups, but then you know that when's Matip next going to play? If he plays Thursday, is he going to get a knock and then not play for 2 weeks again? That's the thing. And like the same with Keita as well. Same with Keita, same with Shaq. There's so many where you're like, you want them in the team and you want them to do well, but then you're always feeling, right, when's the next injury coming? It's coming. You don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to come eventually. And it's trying to get all those things into place, trying to rest players to keep them fresh, and trying to keep playing them because we need them in there because of the quality. So that's why we're coming unstuck recently, because that consistency isn't there. And once it finally comes back in, and I think, like I said, having Jota come back in will freshen us up completely, and I can't wait for that.
Before we move on, like I do agree that obviously Hendo and Fab don't belong there. None of our midfielders belong at the back. And in a regular season, when you've got Virgil and Gomez, they're nowhere near the back. But when you think about how Liverpool play with Virgil and Gomez, we build from the back. And I suppose what Henderson and Fab as a partnership give you, as opposed to Fab and Phillips, for example, is the ability to start attacks from the back. Because Henderson's range of passing is brilliant. He's good with the ball at his feet. And although you want him in the midfield, if you want to build from the back, then Henderson's not a bad shout.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Klopp has moved those two into defence with an eye for that, because I think that, Matip, Gomez, and especially Van Dijk, their distribution from the back line to the wings and over the top gives us something that we haven't. Well, certainly something we've been missing since a lot of them have been out. So I think that he's probably picking guys like that, not only because of their experience, but because of their ability to play balls like that. We haven't really seen much of it, but I assume that he's had that in mind when selecting those two at centre back. But talking about centre backs, here's the next tweet. So this is the news that David Alaba has agreed, basically his wages with Real Madrid, and that a move is imminent. Now, for me, this is someone that I thought that we would really, really push for, because he seems like a Klopp player in the sense that he's a bit of like Fabinho, a Swiss Army knife. He started his career as a wing back and has played central defensive midfielder, and slowly has shifted towards a centre back and would make most people's top 10 centre back in the world kind of list. He's been that influential for Bayern, and he's been put up against a couple of players. They've had a couple of centre backs that have been in and out of rotation through injury, and he's been their mainstay. Obviously, getting on a bit in terms of age, which was maybe off-putting for the likes of Klopp. But Mick, is this something that you see as a big deal for Liverpool?
I think if he goes to Real Madrid, it's a great signing. I mean, just looking now, he's 29 in June, so he's getting on in terms of that. But I mean, I saw a piece, I think it was last week, from Melissa Reddy about this, saying like, obviously we were interested. We talked with the Alaba camp about what his demands were, but I think it came down to that his stature in terms of his physicality isn't what they look for a centre half. I think he's 5'11", isn't he? We usually look for people over 6 foot, obviously, to have that aerial dominance. Like you've got Matip 6'5", Van Dijk 6'4", and from Gomez is 6'2", isn't he? So there's that profile there that they want to try and fit, so we're good on defending corners, and we can also go up the end and score some. No doubt, and he's absolutely world class. Like he is, he's played left, like you said, Tim. He's versatile as anything. He can play midfield, centre mid, left back, centre back. Anywhere you want to put him, he's just a great footballer with a great football brain. So it'll be a great signing for Madrid. It is a bit disappointing because even though he doesn't quite fit the profile, I think sometimes it's hard to try and figure out what are you going to compromise on something like that to get someone in who's available, or are you going to stick to the rigid beliefs that you want someone of this perfect profile, and if you don't meet one of the criteria, you're not going to have them. So I think it's maybe we are missing out a little bit, because he would improve our squad tenfold, and even like you said, Tim, with his versatility, he can play anywhere, but especially centre half now that he's played there quite recently for Bayern and proved himself. It would have been a great sign, and I don't think going to Real Madrid it's a bit of a mad one, because I mean they need to rebuild seriously quite a bit in terms if they want to challenge for anything. And obviously he sees that as a good project to go there and maybe see that rebuild process happen for them. But yeah, it is a miss one for us, I think, if he goes there, because like I said, he could have been good.
All right, Matt, anything else to add on maybe the potential miss of an Alaba signing?
I mean, I never really expected it to happen. It's something I wanted to happen. It was widely reported that Spain was his preferred destination, and it looks like he's going to get that anyway. And then when you think about the situation that he'd be walking into at Liverpool, his age and the wages that he'd ask for, he'd come in, and given our situation now, he'd definitely start next to Van Dijk. But then when Gomez gets back, it would be a battle between him and Gomez. And although I think that he would see Gomez out initially, eventually his age would catch up with him, and then you're going to have a guy on massive wages sat on the bench. I just don't think that's how Liverpool operate. Because he would command a high amount of wages. He's European champion, double European champion. Didn't he win it with Bayern when they beat Dortmund? Multiple Bundesligas, countless cups. And if Madrid are interested, that's only going to bump up the wage demands further. So, be an amazing signing, but not one that I banked on happening.
Okay, well, the one thing I'd say about that, and one thing that we've seen recently with the Jota signing, is that when we've brought in a player who's come in and made an instant impact, as we would expect a player of Alaba's caliber to do, that has increased the performance of the people he's competing for spots with. For example, we've seen a lackluster front three since Jota's gone out. We haven't really scored. Apart from outside of the Crystal Palace game, we've not been on this mad goal scoring run. And the one thing that we've all said is that when he gets back, we're all begging and waiting for him to come back, because we know that it's going to make a difference and it's going to give it something different. It's going to put pressure on the regular front three to step up their game and get back to their world class kind of level, because at the end of the day, that spot's up for grabs. As much as I love our front three, and I have done for 3-4 years now, at the same time, I don't want it to come at the cost of us not winning trophies, at the cost of us dropping points to teams that we shouldn't do. So for me, as much as I understand that his wage packet would be massive, and he'd probably, I think the wages he's going to be on at Real Madrid are closing in on 180 grand a week, which is closing in on Mo Salah money. But at the same time, for what he's going to get for the kind of 3 years left of his prime, put him on a 3-year contract, get him in, and we've got another world-class defender to not only push the likes of Joe Gomez and Matip, but someone that Joe Gomez can learn from. I think Joe Gomez, is about 6 foot, but is built and plays a very similar style of football to Alaba, in the sense that Joe Gomez started out at right back and has now moved into centre back. He's not the biggest physical presence, but is very athletic and is a good ball playing centre back and is good in the tackle. So for me, it's a miss in the sense that I think he would help us in more ways than one.
Yeah. I'd agree definitely, and I think if this was to sign him now, then we'd push a lot harder. But I feel like maybe you see Liverpool. Ooh, what happened there? I think Liverpool have looked at this and gone, all right, well, we can spend this much on him, and he comes in the summer when hopefully, if things go well, both Van Dijk and Gomez are back, and maybe a first choice centre back isn't a priority, or we can take this money and spend it where it might be needed, where if one of the front three leaves, goes into replacing one of the front three. Hopefully, ideally, one of the front three doesn't leave. But the rumours are circulating. So,
I think with Matip as well. Sorry, Tim.
Sorry.
I know this summer, I think he's 30 this year, isn't he? With his injury worries, he's nearly 30. I wonder if this might be the summer where Klopp might be a bit more ruthless and maybe sell a Joel Matip. I don't know what this summer's going to hold. There's a few players with question marks next to the name for a lot of people. The likes of Naby Keita, we've touched on him before, his injury problems. Shaq as well, obviously nearly went as well last summer, and obviously because he didn't, we got rid of Harvey Elliott on loan. If Shaq would have left, we would have kept Harvey Elliott around. So there's a few players that we could get rid of. Obviously Origi as well. So I think the Joel Matip one's an interesting one, because I don't know. Obviously Klopp rates him a lot. He's a free transfer. That was huge. To get him on a free was absolutely amazing, really, how good he's been for us. But it might be an interesting one this summer for Joel Matip in terms of where his future lies as well.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that, and I think that this is if there is going to be a summer where Klopp has to be ruthless to keep us in contention with the Premier League and the Champions League and the likes of Man City, who seem to refresh their squad every summer. I think this is probably the one to do it. This is, you've got a couple of players who are kind of aging and you could probably move on for a decent fee just because of, what they've done for the club. But I think this is probably the summer where you say goodbye to a couple of players and get a couple of players in who are fresh-faced, a little bit younger and ready to come in, take on a bit more of a grueling schedule, kind of like little less injury problems, and try and get some consistency back into the squad. But having said all that, with the cost of Alaba, here is an interesting tweet about someone who is potentially a cheaper replacement.
Yeah, I've seen this one. Militao.
Yeah.
So this is basically the news that Militao has been kind of made available on the back of Alaba, agreeing to his contract with Real Madrid. So, I mean, the first thing I remember of him was him being very good for Porto when we played them, and having one hell of a game. Actually, he was very good. But it's not only that, and I don't think he's fallen out of favour at Madrid because he's not good. I think he's just playing behind Sergio Ramos, who they're never ever going to drop, and Varane, who's a top, in my opinion, certainly a top 5 CB in the world at the moment. I think he's superb. But I think it makes sense. We've got a couple of Brazilians on the team, so it's not like he wouldn't come across and completely fall out of be uncomfortable with the situation. His wage is 89 grand, which is next to nothing these days. You don't have to sign him at the end of his loan. It's not guaranteed you have to sign him. And at the end of the day, look, he's 22, and when you need a CB, loan him up for 6 months and for him to fill a gap. So, Mick, we'll come to you on this one. What would you expect, and would you like to see Militao in a red shirt for at least 6 months?
I would. I think it's one that's obviously there's been a few, like there was Botman last week, there's Militao this week, there'll be another fellow on the list next week probably. But it makes sense because, like I said to him, he's got great pedigree, signed for Madrid for a massive amount of money. I think it was like 50 mil or something, wasn't it like that? Yeah, so not getting a game. He's also versatile, can play right back, like you said, Tim, as well. He played for Porto right back, didn't he, for quite a bit, and now he's kind of moved into centre half. But he's 6'1", he's got the profile, he's tall enough, he's definitely fast enough. I've seen a few stats about his aerial ability, which is he's as good as anyone who's that height and that quick with that type of agility and physicality. He's as good as anyone, and the fact that he's so young, it should be a no-brainer. But obviously you don't know what the thinking is with obviously the scouting team and Klopp and what he wants. Does he want a lone player to come in? Does he want to wait out until the summer? I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing. We can look back at the end of the season and go, well, thank God we didn't get anyone, because it all worked out perfectly well. Everyone came back fit. We got one on that big run of form and won the title. If it doesn't happen, we're looking back at January going, why the fuck did we not bring anyone in? So he definitely, like I said, he fits the profile. If he, like you said, 90k a week is basically nothing in this day and age. Signing on fee 2.5. There's those Brazilians there, Firmino, Alisson, Fabinho. There's a load of them there who he can ingratiate himself in the squad a lot quicker than most clubs with that amount of Brazilians in the team. So yeah, it makes sense to me. I'd love him. I'd absolutely love him, because like you said, Tim, that game he played against us, I watched the clips the other day of it, and he's really good. He's got pace. He's got everything you want to play in that position, and to come in and have a free hit really, because if we sign a centre back, there's going to be no pressure really on them, because they're coming in and they're going to be probably first name on the team sheet if Joel Mata doesn't sort his injury problems out alongside Fabinho. So there's no. Yeah, for me, it should be a no-brainer. But like I said, I have no idea what the thinking is with Klopp and stuff. But yeah, I'd definitely have him.
Yeah, well, the one thing that I would say about him is that for me, when it comes to, obviously, because it's cost us, I think, 39 million quid now to host 13 games or 13 games over the course of the season at Anfield so far. It's obvious that we're not obviously desperate to go out and spend 100 million on a defender or anything of the sorts, which is why it's understandable why you wouldn't bring in the likes of David Alaba, and his transfer fee is likely to be quite large, and if you brought him in January at least, and then his additional to that, his wages are going to be quite big as well. there's not really a reason not to sign Militao, right, Matt?
No. If everyone was fit, which everyone clearly isn't, my answer would probably be different. Yeah, he's rapid. He's kind of like Joe Gomez, if not slightly more reckless. A little bit like a Gomez-Lovren mix. But now, look, bring him in. But if we're going to bring him in to send him back in the summer, I think I'd rather just keep it going with what we've got. If he's gonna come in, I want him to stay. Take these 6 months, no pressure to get in with the squad, to develop, to get used to our play, to build those relationships, and then really kick on. Season starts next to Van Dijk. I don't want a plug, and Klopp doesn't work with plugs. Apart from that weird Steven Corker signing that we touched on when we did the transferator. I think what's happened has really highlighted I suppose the ludicrous decision to let Lovren go and not replace him. But if this guy's available, then he needs to come in, and Liverpool need to look to make it permanent.
I think the only thing, sorry Tim, the only thing I would also see is if we do sign him, I think we've got to free up one of our obviously non-homegrown players. I think we've reached the quota. Obviously Van Dijk's been took out of the squad temporarily while he's injured. I think we have to resubmit that at the end of this transfer window. So I think you've got a case of, if you wanted to maybe, Adrian, for example, would be the first name in my head. Just drop him out the squad completely. I think we'd have to do that to allow someone like that to come in and be put into the squad.
I mean, you could also send Billy Cometio out on loan as well. Or does he count as homegrown?
I think he's homegrown because he's only 17, isn't he?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I would say is that, his contract doesn't expire this. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. His contract doesn't expire this summer. So I think that, I think his contract expires the following summer. I think for that amount of time on that wage, and like you said, there's a glaring we're missing that fourth senior centre back, and like you just touched on, Matt, it was crazy that we let go of Lovren and then didn't go out and replace him. So why not bring him in on loan for 6 months? If it works, keep him. If not, then go out this summer when we've hopefully got a little bit more of financial stability and some room to move around with, and get a genuine replacement. Or if it does work out, keep him on, and he's not expensive for another year, and then you can reevaluate the following summer when his contract expires, because who knows, he might come in and he might be a world beater, and Madrid might have been missing out by keeping Sergio Ramos in the squad this whole time. For me, it's a win-win. I've heard rumours of the likes of Tottenham and a couple of other clubs that are interested in him now that he's been made available by Madrid. I personally, I think we should jump on it ASAP. And hey, look, if we signed him today and he arrived tomorrow, did his medical, and we had him for the game against Burnley with the potential of Matic returning, we'd all of a sudden have two senior centre backs back in the squad, and the midfielder Fabinho, Henderson, and Thiago. And hey, look,
I mean, he definitely brings. Sorry.
No, I was going to say all of a sudden things look a hell of a lot brighter,
Yeah, I mean, he definitely brings a bit of pace back to the centre back position, so we don't have to fear that long ball over the top as much, which would be nice, because every time a ball gets lumped forward, I'm thinking either Alisson comes to get this or we're in trouble. So that would be nice, but we'll see.
For sure. All right, moving on from all this transfer talk, a little bit of a dig.
Absolutely true.
All right, Mick, I'll let you take this one away, mate. Thoughts on Martin Tyler?
Mick's got his own Martin Tyler fan club.
I despise the guy. I don't know what it is, because he used to be quite, like, you think back some of the iconic goals we've scored, and it's usually Martin Tyler doing the commentary, and he's quite vivacious and full of life, and now he's just turned into a miserable old man. Like, even like when Carragher's doing focus with him, he's always having a little dig at Carragher. I was like, what are you doing? Like, and just like repeating stuff like, oh yeah, Liverpool haven't scored in the last 15 minutes of games for 4 games or whatever. Just stuff like that where you like, just talk about the game. Like, he's always just spouting off useless stats and whatever else. And it just really drives me insane. It's like, I just want to mute me telly. I might start muting it. If it's on Sky Sports, I might just start muting it. And that's why when you watch stuff on BT Sport, I mean, Steve McManaman's not much better, but at least he just talks about the game and makes it relevant to what's going on, rather than just spouting off shite from like, oh, Liverpool last won a game in the last 5 minutes 5 years ago. Just useless shit that you don't care about. And you're like, well, now you just jinxed it, Martin. So if we don't score now, I'm going to hate it even more. So yeah, I love him.
Matt, anything to drop?
No, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one memory of Martin Tyler I will always keep and kind of hold against him is the game against Man United where Martial scored a tap-in on his debut, and then Benteke scored an overhead kick that was out as well. And he went, oh, what a goal by Christian Benteke. And then Martial went down the other end and had a tap-in, he freaking screaming his head off. So, yeah, fuck, hate the bastard. All right. Coming up on this next tweet, we are talking Lionel Messi and a comment he made a while back, but a little throwback for all of us.
Lionel is correct.
Yeah.
It's not arguable that he's up there. He's definitely up there, and as Liverpool fans, we're definitely going to say he's the best. It's hard to argue, let's be honest.
Well, the one thing I'll say about Steven Gerrard is, in order to get into the mind frame of watching this Man United game, because I was fairly nervous coming into it, I did watch all of Steven Gerrard's goals for Liverpool on YouTube, and what a player, man! I haven't seen him it's been almost 10 years now since we've seen him in a shirt, and it's, you look back and you think, like 50% of those goals are from 35 yards out. It is ridiculous. Yeah, Mick, any thoughts on one of the best players in the last 20 years?
How long have you got? Fucking hell.
All day, mate. When it's come to Steven Gerrard, all day.
Yeah, he would be. He's just my hero. Like, he is just absolutely my hero. Like, I've met Carragher briefly, but it wasn't as starstruck as I'd be if I saw Stevie G. I think I'd just absolutely don't know what I'd do. I think I'd start sounding all squealy like Carragher and just jump all over him and stuff. But yeah, he's the most complete player I've ever seen, and definitely in the flesh anyway. Like, great crosser, tackler, pace, score from 40 yards, pass a ball, good in the air, like leader, captain, won us the Champions League. Unfortunately, didn't win us the league, but yeah, he's my favourite ever player, just because of what he did and the fact that he's from Liverpool. He's a Scouser. He's came through the ranks. The fact that he's done all that and the stuff that he won in a team that wasn't so great, really, when you look back at some of the lineups we had, like Jimmy Traore and like Biscan and players that are winning Champions Leagues that really shouldn't have in all reality, and he made it happen pretty much single-handedly. An absolute icon. So yeah, I agree with. Obviously, there's loads of other English good players like Rooney and whatever else, and Lampard and Scholes and Shearer. The list goes on. There's a lot of them, but for me, he's obviously number one.
Well, Matt, I'm going to come to you, but just to touch on, just because obviously there's always going to be that period in terms of the talent of English player over the course of Steven Gerrard's career was immense. The likes of Paul Scholes was in the league, Frank Lampard, Wayne Rooney. The thing that's always, because if you're talking about skills, it's hard to separate guys at that level, especially when, the likes of Scholes, Lampard, Rooney were so talented as well and so good at such good football players. The thing that always separated Gerrard from them lot for me was the fact that he was able to do it without a team of superstars around him. The fact that he was able to make a team that was nowhere near as good as the Manchester Uniteds and the Chelseas of the world on an individual basis look just as good or better at times. So, Matt, Steven Gerrard.
Should have won a lot more. Deserved to win a lot more. and he would have won a lot more had he left. And yeah, he almost left once, but apart from when he went to Galaxy, because we kind of chucked him out, he just deserved, his talent deserved so much more than what he won. It's going to be hard in the future to, when you're explaining how good Steven Gerrard was to someone, to get them to believe it when you look at his trophy haul, which still is quite decent in of itself. But what he was amazing, and you just said how it's hard to compare the skill of like Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes, Rooney, players of that quality. But what I'd say about Gerrard is that you could put him in Rooney's position and he'd be world class. You could put him holding like Scholes, he'd be world class. You could put him as the just behind the striker and he'd be world class. Put him anywhere on the pitch and he'd be world class. And that's something that only Steven Gerrard had. And it was hard for me to imagine a Liverpool without Steven Gerrard, and it just makes me. It should scare everyone, or what Steven Gerrard in his prime could do in this Liverpool setup.
Well, there's a guy on Twitter called I think it's G Don or something, LFC G Don, and he's been doing a load of Gerrard comps lately, like Gerrard versus Chelsea, Gerrard versus United. There's one Gerrard versus Barca, and then you watch it back now after like 10-20 years since those games happened, and you're just like, the players, the midfielders aren't like that anymore. He was just everywhere. Like everywhere the ball was, he was there, either winning it back or doing something in terms of creating play, putting a hefty challenge in on someone. He literally had everything. Like Matt said, he versatile, could play anywhere. Played as much right back in Istanbul, and like the extra time moments where we were trying to stay in the game and obviously trying to make it go to penalties. He was just, yeah. If he ended up going to Chelsea, which he very nearly did, they would have won shitloads more, and he would have won several Premier League titles. But he wanted to win them with Liverpool, so that's why we're so lucky to have him. The fact that he came through the ranks as a Liverpool boyhood Scouser, boyhood Liverpool fan, made him stick around, and that's lucky for us that was the case. Otherwise, he would have moved on, like Sterling did.
Agreed. And in terms of Matt just made the comment. I don't know how to explain to people how good Gerrard was. My thing has always been to put up the two starting lineups in the 2005 Champions League final and say Gerrard beat that team with that team. Because at the end of the day, I mean, even to this day, you look at that AC Milan team, and if there was a football hall of fame the way there is in basketball in the NFL, they'd probably have 7 or 8 guys in there. It was an unbelievable AC Milan team, and no one thought we had a chance on earth to come across. And not only to do it to win, but to win the way we did was, and none other than himself started that comeback, you know. So yeah, and just to add, I have seen Steven Gerrard I've seen him play before obviously, but he's now obviously the manager of Rangers, and they played a Gibraltarian side in Gibraltar, and I was home at the time, and I just finished a session with the national basketball team, and I was walking home, and the Rangers bus pulled in, and I thought, holy fuck, like, and so literally just, I was on the pavement right by the bus. I was going along looking for him, and I went around the other side of the bus and found him. Went, yes. So yeah, he probably, Steven Gerrard, if you're watching this, mate, that's
yeah, okay.
20-odd-year-old that 21-odd-year-old freaking kid that you saw in the street in Gib was me, and I was just screaming because I was really excited to have seen you. So yeah.
Wait, and to add to one more thing, because what did you say? You said captain, leader, and a whole lot of other superlatives. I think we can add. We're going to be able to add manager to that list in the next few years as well, because he is definitely going to take up this job. I definitely want to see him at Liverpool. If he could do with Liverpool what he's doing at Rangers, then we're in for a treat. And just before we move on, Tim, that 2005 Liverpool squad would have looked out of place at the UEFA Cup final and the Champions League final.
Exactly. All right, moving on to the next tweet. This is actually a question that Steven Gerrard himself has been asked.
Oh.
So Matt, I hate to put this one to you, mate, but we'll start with you. We all know you've got a bit of an affection for Fernando Torres, but would you take him over a prime Liverpool Luis Suarez?
Okay, what do you want? Do you want a goal scorer, or do you want a... That's a different question there. I think who is the better player was Luis Suarez, hands down. Better all-round player was Luis Suarez because that guy was a magician. Who was more lethal in front of goal? I'd take Torres all day. If there was a one-on-one with the keeper and I had to pick one of those in their prime, I'd be taking Torres.
Mick?
It's so difficult because Torres came at a time where he was like a ray of sunshine and we needed him, and it just all stars aligned. He was just absolutely immense from minute one. Obviously the Gerrard who we just talked about, him and Torres' partnership was just out of this world. It was just telepathic. Like I think of that goal against Newcastle where it's like Torres knocks it to him, Gerrard chests it, he hits it back around the corner, left-footed into Torres' path, and then Torres just goes to shake it and see in a bit, mate. Does a little step over and then just sends him for an echo and scores. And it's just like, how is that even? When you watch that goal back, it's like, how is that even possible? Like how is this, like, it just, them two together were just two geniuses on the same field, just like thanking the stars that they were playing with each other. But in terms of who I'd take, I think that Matt's right. Suarez is probably a better all-round player in terms of chasing stuff down and skills and just doing magic things. But I think I would pick Torres just. I think if you want someone in this Liverpool team now, I think Suarez would. Like imagine Suarez, Salah, and Mane. That would be unbelievable. Suarez in his prime, but I think just because the Torres Gerrard thing and how good he was in that period and how he made me feel in that period, he was just absolutely terrific. I think Torres shades it by like 1%.
How he made us all feel, Mick. He made us all feel it. Torres was my first love.
Well, I'm actually gonna disagree with Mick here. I think I would have it the other way around. I think if I had to pick one, I'd take Suarez. But if I had to put one in the team currently, it would be Torres because of his hold-up play and because he's a big target. And he was good in the air. He was superb with his head. Yeah, I mean, two of the best strikers I've seen. But I mean, the difference for me is Suarez. I mean, he at times made me think this is the best player I've ever seen. Like when we played Norwich, the hat-tricks against Norwich, and you're just thinking, I can't believe this guy's actually doing what he's doing. And I mean, one of the goals he scored, I think it was it his hat-trick, the one where he chipped the guy and came back and hit half volley, and he's going, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I mean, and you know, that for that reason alone, because I absolutely love Fernando Torres. I was playing as a kid when he was around, and I had to have the same boots as him and all that kind of stuff. And what a superb player he was. But I have to admit, if I was picking one, it would have to be Luis Suarez. All right. Having said that, from previous strikers to current one, here's the next tweet.
And that question hurt me, Tim. It really did.
Yeah, this is huge. This one, seen this one, yeah, absolutely massive.
Yeah, we touched on this in the last one, didn't we?
Yep, it was actually contradictory to what I said because I was talking about how he was. Well, I did say that the quote was taken out of context by the other Egyptian. I can't remember his surname for the life of me. But the other Egyptian great footballer was taken out of context because he said he was happy he wouldn't throw a Madrid move off the table, which is fair enough. I mean, why would you? But yeah, the fact that he's committed to winning trophies here is a huge deal. And you know what he's shown so far in his Liverpool career, and if he can continue with that, it would put us in a great position to win more. What's your thoughts on this, Mick?
I absolutely love Mo Salah. I do. I think he's still top goal scorer this season, isn't he? He's not in form at the moment, but who is for Liverpool? Like we're going through a bit of a blip at the moment. So when we start firing again, he'll be the first name on the team sheet, bagging goals for us, no doubt about it, because that's how good he is. Like, he's one of those players that we won't really appreciate till he moves on. I mean, this comes back to what we were talking about earlier, the Monday Night Footy, where Carragher's breaking down our forward line, and like that, the fact that they've been together for so long is quite unusual, and it's obviously going to change at some point in the future. Obviously, that has to, because they're all reaching 30. But Mo Salah is terrific, and the fact that he wants to stick around and stay at this club and win stuff, then surely that's huge for us, because having him in the team is massive. Like, I know he's getting towards, I think he's going to be 29 this year, is he, in June? So he's getting on, but the front three, all of them are. So we're going to have to do a little rebuild job. Obviously, Yotta's come in to try and do that gradually, and I imagine we'll probably see another one this summer, I imagine, to kind of do it in stages, rather than bringing, you can't just bring 3 players in and go, right, go on lads, crack on, you'll be as good as Salamani for me. It's not going to happen. So I imagine Yotta will take place one of them. I think Harvey Elliott could do it like temporarily. Once, obviously he's still young now, there's a load of time for him to progress, but I think in the future he could do it, because fucking ceiling for Harvey Elliott is ridiculous. He could come in and do an immense job for us, even at the young age he is now. I mean, I don't think he's 18 yet, is he? So it's mental. But yeah, if Salah wants to stick around, then, like I said, I think it's on the last pod, if Salah wants to go, then yeah, he can go, because we don't want players who want to just stick around, who want to. I'm not sure if they want to stick around because they're not sure where the team's going and where the club's going, and we can bring someone in who wants to be in the team, because we want players who want to fight for the shirt. We want players who want to win stuff with this club. We've proved over the last 2 years that that's what we're all about now. We're about winning trophies, and with Salah in the team, it makes it more possible, because if you lose Salah and bring someone in, you're not going to get the same level. It's just not feasible, because Mo Salah is, for me, one of the best the Premier League's ever seen. I mean, I was on a pod recently with like a load of opposition fans, and I think it was best Premier League 11 that we were talking about, and there was about 12 of us, and we were going through our forward 3, and I didn't pick Salah, but one of the other fellas were like, wouldn't you pick Salah, Mick? And I was like, I wouldn't now, but definitely in the future, I think he would be. He's definitely in the question. He's alongside Ronaldo. Definitely, he's up there with the best wingers this league's ever seen, for me. I mean, if he sticks around Liverpool for another 2-3 years, the amount of goals he could score could be frightening, and those goals can push us to several more Premier League titles and Champions League titles. So it's a no-brainer for me. If he wants to stick around, we keep him. That's the ultimate goal, to keep him happy. Because I think he says in the quote, doesn't he, like he wants to feel loved. So the fact that if we give him that love, then he reciprocates that tenfold by scoring shitloads of goals. So win-win.
Matt, how do you feel about this? Do you offer him a new contract, more money? Do you keep him on the same? What angle do you take with this?
Give him what he wants. I mean, I don't really pay much attention to footballers saying that they want to stay. We've heard it before. Torres said it. Suarez said it. Coutinho said it. I'm sure all of them signed new contracts a year before they eventually left. But look, give him another contract, and then he kind of has to stay until we get a fee that we want, and there's no risk of that running down. He's definitely earned it. He's consistently been our top goal scorer, and to be honest, Mick, I'd argue that the levels that Mo Salah's hit is a lot higher than Ronaldo ever got in the Premier League. Ronaldo is world class, 100%, one of the best, if not the best, but he wasn't that in the Prem. And I think people sort of get that confused.
I think the argument I was trying to not pick players that were playing, because I think if I picked the best 11, I would put Van Dijk in it 100%, because he's the best centre back I've ever seen. There's no doubt about it in terms of all round play by a long way. I know John Terry, Rio Ferdinand, there's loads of names in there. I think it was John Terry and Ferdinand that got picked in the end, but I was like, I'm not going to pick players who are playing now, because I don't think it's fair. I mean, once they've retired and whatever, or they've left the league, then yeah, Van Dijk and Salah definitely go into my all-time Premier League 11, because, like you said, Matt, Salah's numbers speak for themselves. I mean, his all-round play is up there with the best. I mean, he gets called a ball greed quite a lot, but what goal scorers aren't? Like, the best goal scorers in the world are all like that. And as much as it's infuriating, 8 times out of 10 they hit the back of the net, or they create something on the back of it. So it's one of them. Like, we in the moment, it's like it comes back again to Gerrard. When Gerrard was doing so well, like the latter stages of his career, there was a lot of shit thought about Steven Gerrard. Like, why is he playing CDM? He's not quick enough. He doesn't know the role well enough. He's making us slower. Like that Thiago shit today with Didi Command saying Thiago makes us tick slower. It was that type of stuff when you question the performance levels of a legend, and I think Mo Salah is a legend now. I think he's a legend. Like the stuff that he's done for us over these past years, like it's absolutely ridiculous, and it is a shame that it'll only be fully appreciated when he goes. That's the only thing that annoys me.
The thing is, it's not even because you said what would you offer him. I think you kind of have to just give him what he wants, because there's two things you have to consider. One, what he's done for the club and what he continues to do for the club. And two is what Mick said, is that whoever you bring in to replace him is not going to get those numbers. So you need to keep this guy around as long as you can. And yeah, you got to get rid of him when he wants to go. So you got to make sure that he wants to stay for as long as possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, talking about that, I think Jay mentioned it in the last Twitterverse about how it's such a positive that Liverpool aren't selling all-time great players and bringing in shit. But for me, the only guy that would have a chance really of coming in and having an impact almost off the back straight away and coming in and replacing those kind of numbers is Haaland. And to be honest, like, would I do that? Yeah, but like you say, his release clause doesn't set in for ages, and you're not going to get him for anything less than 150 million, essentially, because Dortmund won't want to let him go until that release clause kicks in. But yeah, I agree. I think that one thing that we have to take a step back and look at is what Mo Salah's been able to achieve at Liverpool. And the heights he's hit. You know, he's broken the Premier League single season scoring record, which was around forever. You know, and it just gives you an eye. You know, he's had one season where he hasn't scored 20 goals in the Premier League. He's played, you know, it's going into his fourth, and he's probably going to hit it. He's on what, 13 at the moment with 18 games left. So, you know, a guy who's had 3 out of 4 20+ goal scoring seasons in the Premier League is, one, an all-time great, and two, add a Champions League and a Premier League to that, and you're looking at not only a club legend but a legend of the league. Yeah, all right, we're just going to move on now, just quickly and touch on potentially some big news for Liverpool and a big positive.
Yeah,
massive.
We need him.
I think it's been made more clear than ever that we kind of need him around, and you know, for someone who was such a shock signing out of the blue, out of the middle of nowhere, he has been a guy who's come in and hit the ground running and looked like he's ready to take the mantle from whoever drops it in that front three. So, Matt, do you want to just touch on what the boost that gives us going into February?
Massive. Like, it's not only because of the levels that he was hitting, which hopefully he will hit again. I don't doubt that he will with the system that we have. It just suits him perfectly, and the chemistry he's been able to build with everyone in the club. But it's not just his ability; it's the fact that now the front three have a fire lit under their arse because they know, shit, our place isn't guaranteed anymore. This guy who can play in either of their positions, he can play left, he can play right, he can play centre forward. They know that if they're not at it, next game, Yota's in. So it's just a complete domino effect. It's going to be the same thing for when Virgil and Joe come back. It's just the levels are just going to go up because everyone's going to just be fighting for that starting berth. So it's going to make everyone just go up another gear, and hopefully he could just come in and hit the heights that he was hitting anyway.
Yeah, Mick, do you want to just touch on a Hoodie return in the coming weeks?
Yeah, agree with everything Matt said. It's no coincidence that since he's gone out the team, there's been a bit of a drop off because the front three now pretty much they're nailed on to start every week. And when Jota came in, he proved that your place isn't secure because I can take any one of your positions. If you're not firing and you're not performing to the levels required, then I'll come in and do it. And I think he got 9 in 17 games. Obviously, just absolutely terrific. Like a hat-trick against Atalanta. which was just unbelievable. Like the goals he was scoring and like the runs he makes, like having him back, and then obviously Thiago's back now. Having those two in the same team, he makes the runs that Thiago is like licking his lips over. He makes those runs in behind, like little clip over the top. There you go, Diogo, have a goal, mate. And that's it. Like, and if we're not playing fluid football at the moment, and he'll come in and he'll disrupt that, and he forces things, he makes runs that I don't think any of them make at the moment, because he's got that freshness. He's young enough. He wants to prove himself. Like, comes back to the last Twitterverse episode saying like no one wants to sign for Liverpool, and we obviously touched on like Jota's disproved that completely, because he came in knowing that we've got a rigid front three that's the best in the world, and he still came in to Liverpool going, right, I'm gonna fuck shit up and disrupt this and come in and score goals, and he's done it. He's proved it. So it's having him back is huge. I think it's him getting injured was just another nail in the coffin when we didn't need it. It came at the completely wrong time, and it really disrupted what we were doing at the time in terms of having that outlet up top, and having someone who's just very good in front of goal as well. Like, he scores all types of goals. So having that back in, I mean, we've got Man City in February as well, haven't we? So having him back for those games and Champions League games is vital.
I mean, it's no shock that the front three got better, because this was the first credible threat that they've ever had at Liverpool for their starting positions. Yeah, Taki's come in a couple of times, Sephton come in a couple of times, but if you're Bobby, Mo or Sadio, and you get benched for Shaq or Taki, for example, you know next game you're in. This guy's the first threat for a continual run of games that they could possibly eat the bench. And apart from making them raise the game, it just gives us another option that we can put all four on. And if you thought it was hard to defend a front three, well, try defending a front four.
Well, that's what we did at a couple of games, didn't we? We had those four in. I was like, imagine those four with Thiago and Hendo in front of them, like just like obviously behind them. Sorry, and then it doesn't matter in terms of that when you've got that type of structure, all those attacking players, and then you've got Thiago and Henderson feeding them, and obviously if you've got Fabinho and Matip at the back, that would just, like I said, having him in there just makes all our problems a bit easier, and the fact that we can start, even if we start winning games 1-0, like a scruffy goal by Jota, any type of goal and he wins us a game, then we start the ball rolling in terms of getting some results on the board, and I think he brings that back into the team once he comes back.
Yeah, I think he's certainly represents something that Liverpool fans will be looking forward to over the next coming months, regardless of results. I think we've all, maybe prematurely, but got our hopes riding on him coming back and having a massive impact on our goal scoring threat once again. So, having said all this, talking about a player returning, we're now going to talk about a player exiting. So our next tweet is,
let me guess, Genie. Yeah.
All right. Well, this is the report that Genie Wijnaldum has turned down his latest contract offer from Liverpool, and is now looking to essentially sign and talk terms with Barcelona. Now, obviously, massive role over the last few years since Klopp brought him in. Anyone want to touch on how good he's been and what we'll be missing, and what might replace him? Okay.
So obviously, this tweet says that he's made his decision. There's loads of different reports out there. Another one is that apparently he hasn't made a decision. I think what I've heard the most is that he's waiting. He hasn't said no to the contract. It's on the table. He's just waiting for the presidential election to happen, and then he'll decide what to do. Because obviously a lot depends on whether the new president of Barca wants him. I mean, that's something that many people aren't considering. But look, Genie's one of those players that if he wants to leave, he can leave as an absolute hero, because the guy deserves it. He's been there, one of the catalysts that's seen us go from like also rounds to just where we are now. He's been so key, so influential, and and a player that no doubt is going to be very difficult to replace. So much so that I think the system's going to have to change ever so slightly, because Thiago is going to be the guy to replace him in the starting 11, because you assume Fab and Hendo go back into the midfield alongside Thiago. But the way that we play is going to have to change slightly, because Thiago won't do what Gini does. He'll do his own version of world-class ability, which he will bring to the table, but the team will have to change slightly. But look, if he wants to go, he's earned it. The goals against Barca themselves, they earned it. So I wish he'd stay, but if he wants to go, then good luck.
Mick, you want to touch on it?
Yeah, it's the exact same. Like he's gave what, 5 years to the club. He's 30 now. It's, if he wants to go and experiment and go to another league, you can't really blame him. Like he's won Premier League and Champions League with Liverpool. He's been a mainstay of the team. I think he's played like the most minutes or something, hasn't he? Or something crazy. Like he's been the most selected under Klopp, alongside like Firmino. And he's like we've said loads. He's the perfect Klopp player for that left-sided role of a three. I'm hoping like a Curtis Jones. Obviously, he's proved in drips and drabs that he can be that good. I mean, he's got a lot of development to do, but I'm hoping he can step in there, Curtis Jones, because he's ready-made. He knows the system. He's come through the ranks. I'm hoping he'll be another, maybe not a Steven Gerrard in that regard. I mean, even if he's 50% of what Stevie was, then he'll be out of this world. But no, you can't hold any ill will towards Gini Wijnaldum, because just like Matt said, the stuff that he's done for the club, he's gave us 5 years. He's won his trophies. He's been influential in everything. He's a great guy. He's a great character. Bit of Brendan Rodgers there for you. Great guy. No, you can't. It's if he wants to go like what he does for Netherlands is he plays like a more advanced role and scores goals, and we know he can do that because he's done it for us a couple of times this season, and he's a good goal scorer. So if he wants to go to another country, get some sun, play for Barcelona, obviously it's probably maybe a dream of his to go and play for Barcelona. So that's move his family to a hot country, play in a different system, score some goals in the La Liga, then you can't really blame him for wanting to do that and experiment in a different league. Obviously, he was at Newcastle before he came to us, so he's been in England quite a long time. So, he leaves a club legend for me because of the stuff that he's done. And wish him well if he leaves. And obviously, if he stays, I'll be absolutely made up, because if you keep him around a bit longer, like with the likes of Salah and those are the players who are aging, but definitely can play another 2-3 years at the highest level in a Klopp team, then if he sticks around, then I'll be made up. But it does look like he is on his way out, unfortunately for us.
Yeah, he's come up clutch so much for Liverpool over the last few years. I think the goal against Middlesbrough, for when we needed to win for Champions League qualification on the last day of the season, the goals against Barca, the goal to put us ahead against Roma in the away leg, which ended up proving so important. Gini is the perfect Klopp player. We've described him as that so many times, and it's annoying when you think how quickly people were willing to throw him to one side when there was news about us getting Thiago. It was seen as either Thiago or Gini. Like we got to keep, and ideally we get to both going forward. But look, if he wants to leave, then it's like I said before, without repeating myself too much, then tip your hat, thanks for everything, and good luck.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would add to that is that this is probably the perfect time, in the sense that for player and club, because at the end of the day, we have got the depth in the midfield to be able to still be to put world-class quality on the field, whether he's there or not. And for the player, he's won the two biggest trophies you can do with Liverpool in the Premier League and the Champions League. It is a boyhood dream of his to go to Catalonia and play for Barcelona, where Dutch legends have played for ages. And it just seems like the right time. And like I said, we will miss him. He is the definition of a big game player. It feels like every time there was a moment of doubt, Gini would pop up with a goal or a tackle or a pass, and you just go, oh, thank God we have him, And there's no doubting that Thiago's going to come in and be brilliant for however long he's with us. But it won't take away anything from how good Wijnaldum has been and how consistent he's been, how injury-free and available he's been, and just how well, like both of you have alluded to, just how well he fits into Klopp's system. And any players, any young kids coming through the system while Klopp is still at the club, the one guy you can point to that, whereas if you're going to be a part of this team, if you want to break into the 11, if you would point to a guy and say, play like him, because that will probably earn you a starting spot or a spot on the bench or a spot in Klopp's mind to make sure that he knows you're there and available to him. It's like Gini Wijnaldum, because he's been absolutely superb for a number of years. So yeah. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up on that. That was the last tweet I collected this week, but special thanks to Mick and Matt once again for joining me, and thank you, and we'll see you next time.